It's Himmel being brutally edited. I am in the Eastman Theatre in Rochester, New York. I'm back in America, in the Ranelagh Lounge. Old Lady Ranelagh is staring down at us from an oil painting.
Over a beautiful piano.
Over a lovely piano. What kind of piano is that?
Probably this side.
Another Steinway?
Probably not.
Interesting. The last Steinway I saw was in Cuba, painted with enamel paint. It was from the third year of production, out in the open on a porch.
Really?
Yeah. And I was telling the hotelier, I was like, that's probably a very expensive piano. He's like, I've heard it. This guy comes down from Canada every year and tunes it, and he keeps asking me if he can take it. So, not like that beautiful.
There's one in every room in this theater.
Oh, nice.
It's pretty amazing.
This is Douglas Brooks. Douglas is one of my new favorite people. It's hard to find people that like me. So Douglas is an erudite intellectual in Sanskrit. Douglas,
So I'm actually faculty here at the University of Rochester.
Oh,
and the Eastman Theatre is part of the Eastman School of Music, which is really all around us.
What's your specialty?
I'm in the Department of Religion and Classics, but I'm the Hinduism professor.
Yeah.
So I teach comparative religions and Hinduism and Sanskrit and Asian languages.
Love it.
We used to joke that I was in the Department of Dead and Irrelevant Languages.
Or Shaktis and
Shaktis.
gods and goddesses.
Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and
Yeah.
the 330 million gods, yeah.
So
But I'm way into Himmel jackets.
I'm way into Hinduism, so there you go.
Yeah.
I took introduction to Hinduism.
Did you actually?
In first year.
That's good.
Read the Vedas, read the Bhagavad Gita, that was the assigned reading.
That's cool.
It was very hot. Well, my favorite part of living in India was all the Jain screwing architecture.
Yeah, there's plenty of that, and the Jains invented the ascetic world. I mean, Jains don't just renounce the world; they pull their hair out. They sweep before them. They wear little masks. It's pretty crazy.
I went to Borobudur and in Indonesia.
Borobudur, yeah.
Borobudur.
Yeah.
Borobudur.
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 Close enough.
There you go. I'm close. Anyway. And wow, I love ancient erotic art.
Mm.
The Rajasthanis have this whole, I've never seen a more asexual, sexualized culture than India.
Yeah,
right?
that's so true. I mean, there's all of that marvelous medieval erotic art all the way from Khajuraho, where the temples are.
Just everywhere.
Yeah. And of course, they're depicting the various sort of levels of the world. So there's the realm of desire, and then there's the realm of forms, and then above there's formlessness. And so there's sort of a
I love
whole
that.
visionary understanding.
We just met.
Yeah.
We just met. We've literally, he keeps buying jackets from me and writing these wonderful reviews. So
Can't help it.
we're going to do a lot of videos and then splice them together, just getting to know each other in person. So I'll tell you another Himmel secret.
Do.
Do you have heroes?
All
Who's your number one hero?
number one hero.
Yeah.
That's a really good question.
Maybe from the past, historical hero.
Well, recent?
Yeah.
So
You can pick any hero.
any era.
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela.
Okay, fair enough.
He would count for me as a contemporary hero. I like my heroes flawed.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, that's the only way.
The anti-hero.
Well, that's the only way they really come.
Yeah.
There's no such
There's
perfection.
no. With every heroic act comes a dark, dirty past.
Everyone's got their shadows.
Everybody's got the shadow side, as they say.
Indeed.
The shadow knows. So mine, Richard Burton.
Richard Burton. Burton was cool.
You know the Burton I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Not the actor. The guy.
The guy.
The polyglot.
Correct.
Who went off to Africa and India.
Yeah.
And translated the Kama Sutra.
That is that Burton. Right?
And lived as a polyamorati in the Victorian times.
Exactly.
Took a spear, a Somali spear, through his face while he was on a mission to try and find the source of the Nile River, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
Yes.
That is that Richard Burton.
Right. He was the scourge. He was a scourge. Every anti-hero of the 19th century, this guy was like, if you ever saw the TV show Sharp or something, and basically they're all just like fictional characters
Right,
of
they're all-
Richard Burton.
Right,
you know.
they're all inflections of Burton. That's exactly
Yeah.
right. Mine would be like someone like Sir William Jones.
Oh, yeah.
So Jones was the guy who, in the early part of the 18th century, was the first really to articulate, probably not the first to figure it out, but he was the first one to articulate the relationship between Indic languages like ancient Vedic and Sanskrit, and then Greek, Latin, and the entire Indo-European family. So he's the guy who figured out that virtually all the languages from Ireland to northern India belong to the same family. And that,
Let me ask you a weird question.
yeah,
So, you know, and this is vaguely political. I'm vaguely aware, Jewish guy, right? That Hitler, back in Germany, you know, with his whole Aryan thesis, he sent for a detachment of Indians that arrived in Germany and became the sort of Indian SS, and then returned back to India. And I think now they're the foundation for the BJP.
the RSS and the VHS, so
Yeah.
those were radical right-wing formulations that happened. In fact, those are the fellows who killed Gandhi,
Yeah.
effectively. And,
Yeah,
and
so
that right-wing element of Indian politics is now the governing.
it's the governing against Modi.
Shameful.
Shameful. But what is the connection of Indo-Sanskrit and European culture? Where's the crossover? What's the actual story in like a short form?
In short form,
Yeah.
is that, okay, so the easiest way to think about this is to think about the mother language. So
Yeah.
that is, which is part of what Jones was at the heart of that first discovery.
Okay.
So that mother language we call Proto-Indo-European.
Okay.
And its origins are your origins. That is, somewhere out there in the eastern Ukraine is probably the
We're
source.
not like Finno-Ugric. We're
No,
talking
no, that's
pre-
north. That's north.
Okay.
The Finno-Ugric.
Because that's the other side.
Yeah,
of my
yeah, that's the
heritage.
other
My
side.
mom's Estonian.
Oh,
right?
that's cool. That's
Okay.
that's the non-Indo-European northern side of that
Okay.
argument. But these folks migrated east and west,
Okay.
and when they arrived on the Indic side of the equation,
Yeah.
they called themselves Arya, which is our word for Aryan.
Okay.
That's the same word that's the Ire in Ireland,
Yeah.
right? It's the same Iran in
Or
Iranian.
The cool chick in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that one too.
Yeah.
Right. So that's simply the name that they call themselves.
So where did those inflections of that language play out most in European language?
Well, everywhere through Greek and Latin, and all the only outlier languages in Europe are Finnish, Hungarian,
So
and
the
then things like
Finno-Ugric or
yeah, and things like
Samoyed and
those are northern side.
Yeah, yeah.
Like to find other outliers, you have to go to the Basque language. Like
so the Basque language is also tied somewhere. in
Right,
there,
that's
too.
that's not Indo-European.
Yeah.
So that belongs to the outlier
Yeah.
batch. But everybody else from Ireland to northern India, with the exception of those hands.
So this was a sort of cultural linguistic migration.
Correct.
That sort of like
Right.
vague resonances.
Right.
overlap.
So what happened in the 17th and 18th century
Yeah.
was that this was when, really before the archaeology established these connections, the linguists established these connections. So the historical comparative study of language kind of led the way. Then there was archaeology that began to prove.
And this says not related to anything in the Aramaic.
No,
Mediterranean.
that's Semitic world.
So the
That's-
Semitic world cuts off
cuts
there.
off there, right?
And
So-
then we got the sort of.
Right, so the Indo-European languages cut across that northern part of the Pamirs all the way.
And how does it? Do you have stronger influences like in Roma or?
Yeah. So, well, Latin's later in the story. So,
Yeah.
so what happened really was that when the Indic languages, particularly Sanskrit, was kind of unveiled to these Western scholars, they thought, and rather mistakenly, that they had found the motherland, that they had found the language that was in fact the origin of all these languages, including Greek. That's a fallacy that still saturates certain Indian politics and nationalism because they want to think.
Sure, it's
that
like a DNA test.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
doesn't quite work.
It doesn't really quite work. But what happened in the subsequent generations
Yeah.
is that the comparative linguists did figure out that all this stuff was related.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I made my...
That's your career right
my
there.
thing, yeah.
That's your Sanskrit thing.
That's my Sanskrit. So,
We share a love of India in our 20s,
yeah, we were both there
being weirdos.
doing those,
Well, I was
doing
being
those
a-
bond lessons.
I discovered hashish and yogurt, THC drinks that were very soothing for
Yeah.
my gastric troubles. And,
Dave was apparently on Indian weight loss program.
Indian weight loss
Let's drink the
program.
water and see what happens.
I marveled at elephants and camels going through city gates that were built 400 years earlier, and this is.
I think we wandered the same streets.
We wandered the same
probably
streets.
probably lounged on the same beaches.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
Although
I'm a little older. So.
you're a little older and you like beaches more than me, so
Not so much.
I'm very pale, so
Yeah.
like
Well,
Northern European.
The Himalayas were more my jam.
Oh, was that your thing?
Yeah.
Oh God.
So
I spent a lot of time sick in the Himalayas.
Yeah. My best buddy is probably the foremost scholar of the goddess traditions of the Central Himalayas. My thing is deep South India.
Oh, okay.
So I'm also a Tamil speaker.
Right.
That's where I'm at.
Tamil Nadu.
Yeah, Tamil Nadu.
Great food.
South of Chennai. Oh, beautiful food.
I have not been to, I always wanted to go to Kerala. I wanted to see them with their flexible, retractable knives fighting.
There is that martial tradition. And Kerala is wetter and more jungly and just very beautiful. I'm actually doing research on this mountain god who's in the space between Kerala and Tamil Nadu, and we've been tracking down his pilgrimage for the last 10 years, and I think we're probably, I have a handful of fellows I go with, I think we're the only foreigners who've ever really been on this pilgrimage. So it's way up in the jungle of Kerala, which is what makes it fun, and it's 41 days barefoot.
Chennai is a leather center.
Yes, Chennai is.
Chennai is the leather center of India. There's a university of leather in Chennai.
Isn't that where you get your goat?
I do get my goat actually in India, ironically, because they have the best, most authentic 1930s style goat, full veg from these big goats, and it has this sort of artificial nitrocellulose. Oh, hey, we could relate this to the Eastman family. So nitrocellulose is the material that all film was made of pre 50s, and it's highly explosive.
Yes, explosive, and it's dissolvable.
And it dissolves over
Right,
time.
right.
It becomes unstable and then explodes, which is why we don't have a lot of old movies anymore.
Like a third of Lost Horizon and other.
Yeah. So
Fantastic.
we are in the palace that nitrocellulose built.
That's in fact
And,
true. And just a few blocks away from George Eastman's house, which is a famous photography museum.
So interesting fact, they used to coat goat skin with a coating of nitrocellulose to give it its sheen. Yeah. And so if you get like 1920s, 30s goatskin jackets, California goatskin jackets, they were always shiny
And
from
were they
nitrocellulose.
imported?
No, it was made in.
It was just how everybody did it?
That's how they did it, to get that beautiful, to get the nice coating on top to bring out the animal. So my Indian goat has a coating that looks like nitrocellulose. It took me 3 trips to the Linea Pelle Milan leather show to find this
guy?
goat.
This
goat maker. And they're ethical, and they're ISO rated, and they have
That's cool.
healthcare facilities, and they clean their water. So that's my one non-Western. Well, you can't get really good goat anywhere outside of India or Pakistan. That's just a fact. Like there are some.
There are an awful lot of goats everywhere you go. I'm not surprised though that there's that kind of offering now in India. I mean, there's all kinds of.
Well, they're
shoemakers
great.
and leather makers.
They are great at leather.
It's stepped up its game.
They still have schools of tanning where they learn the chemistry of tanning, which that hasn't been in North America for decades. We handed over our tanning knowledge to DuPont and.
Right.
There
are dozens of those sorts of technical, smaller colleges that teach these trades in India, just dotting across the landscape.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not surprised that they've mastered tanning or in fact still teach it.
So in North America, they used to, for example, they would take samples of the bark from all the oaks and the hemlocks around New York and Ontario, and they would have them chemically analyzed for their tannages and publish just books of exactly
of the
what
exact
tonnage was,
percentages.
exact percentages in every single region.
That's so cool.
And then they would publish recipes as to how you could get different impacts or effects on leather using different tannages from different woods harvested from different regions. And that's how important and relevant tanning industry was, because all the belts running all the industrialism of the early 19th century were made of leather, and they needed to
Right.
understand.
Well, I'm not surprised that the goat industry kind of piece of that was featured, because it's always been interesting and problematic.
Yes. That was my first encounter with it. My first encounter with it was the train station in Delhi, where it just walked up to me and started licking me, and I was like, what the hell?
You never know in what form the Lord might come.
Yes, it would be the cow would have a poop, the pig would come eat the poop, then the pig would have a poop, then the dog would eat the pig poop, and then it would just go like down the poop chain ladder in the street.
Well, one of the old ancient words for cow, actually it's the origin of our word in English for cow, is the word go or goha.
Okay.
And it also means universe and mother.
Is that like Goa is Goa? Or
No,
is
that's
that
a
a different
That's a
word?
different word.
It's a Portuguese word.
It's a Portuguese thing.
Portuguese
But
word.
the word for cow is the word for mother.
Yeah.
Is also it's one
Mother's
of the words.
milk.
And the word for the universe. So the universe is a cow.
Goa. As opposed to Gaia.
As opposed to Gaia. Well, Gaia is a different matter. That's to sing. Right? So
Is
bod,
it?
like bod Gaia.
The Greek word for Gaia.
That's-
Gaia is
That's Gaia. Oh, the Greek.
Yeah.
The Greek Gaia is the Sanskrit word Gaia.
so it's related.
Yes. They're called cognate.
Yeah, in
That's-
Greek.
yeah, that's-
Yeah.
yeah, we call that cognate. So when two words are related to each other, but they didn't learn it from each other,
Yeah.
they didn't borrow it, they developed it independently, those words are called cognate. That means that those two words, like the Greek word.
So
and
the
Sanskrit
Greek word for everything, or like a panorama, panachia.
Yeah, right.
Chia is like circular.
Right.
There's this whole idea of everything. Anyway.
So those words go back to a previous word.
Yeah.
So like to give you, like the Veda is the word for knowledge. So that would be the English veracity. That would be the Latin veritas.
Mhm.
That would be the Greek oida.
Okay.
But all of those words go back to a mother language. That's how we know, because that's what they mean when we say they're cognate. So they're related to each other, but they didn't learn it from each other. So they must go back to a previous origin from which they all learned.
So this is like
That's how
this
it
is a
is, yeah.
linguistic deconstruction.
Yeah, exactly. That's how that is.
Sherlock Holmes, if you will.
Exactly.
It's
is
like
all
the
from-
way Mongolian roots in the Finno-Ugric. There's apparently
Yes, there is
some-
some, yeah.
because the Mongolians, of course, raping and pillaging all the way to Hungary.
all the way to Hungary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually,
So love hanging out. This guy's so smart.
I studied Mongolian.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, with this amazing old scholar. He came out of World War II. His name was Francis Cleves, and Professor Cleves was one of those sort of Harvard dons with the bow tie and the tweed jacket, and he was the foremost scholar of Mongolian of his era. And one of my classmates, she was actually.
I got a lot of Mongolian gene pool.
Yeah,
As
you
an
must. Well, of course.
Estonian.
Well, you know that's what the.
So the DNA test
No,
came
it's
up
just
like
saying
you
that-
Mongolian.
Yeah, the Mongolians made their way through the world.
And I was told
So
this,
everybody's got a little Mongolian.
this was
They
what I
drop
was
their
told.
seed.
So I have this like crazy Klingon like ridge down the middle of my head. You can't see it because I still have some hair. It's called a sagittal crest.
Yeah.
So it's like if I was
You know how like the Buddha has a cupcake, like that
Yeah,
little
yeah.
crown on the top of his
Yeah.
head? That's called an ushnisha.
Ushnisha.
Yeah, it's the Sanskrit word for you, like the Buddha's cupcake.
Okay.
Thing
Yeah.
you say.
I didn't
When he
know
gets
that.
awakened,
Oh,
it
okay.
grows.
Does the Dali have one of those?
Well, yeah, those are so there are 32 overt markers of a potential Buddha. They're called 32 lakshanas.
Oh, yeah.
And then there are
Oh,
80
lakshanas.
there are 80 implications. So one of the 32 is like he has big ears and
I've been told by my
You've got-
nephews and nieces.
you're
the Cambodians
you-
love me
you
for
are-
my
you
ears.
are
so-
in your
Yeah.
you are in the latency of your last birth.
That's right.
You are a bodhisattva awaiting your last enlightenment.
It's
So
apparently
you've got this
the sagittal
sagittal
crest
crest.
is like a Mongolian thing. That's
Yeah,
what I was
well,
told.
you know,
So anyway.
And like the Buddha, you've got to go kick.
Yeah, but then I have the big East European blockhead, so it's like a perfect
Oh, we're
combination.
all of mixed heritage.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
No kidding.
Thank goodness.
There's no, you know why human beings are not pure? You know why these eugenics motherfuckers, pardon my French,
No,
we
they
believe that is,
suck.
you know why they suck? Because the one drive that human beings have that overrides everything, besides power, money, we just can't stop screwing each other. It's like, oh, there's someone different, I have to go make love to them. Oh, I have to make love to you. It's like the history of humanity is just this endless bonobo monkeys and human beings. They're the permanently erect, if you will. Yes, that is the history of humanity.
Well,
Yeah.
the gods willing,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Everybody else has to have a penis bone. Just so you
Right,
know.
right.
We don't have that
No.
because we're just the randiest primate there is.
That's
And,
right. That's right.
that just throws purity right out the window.
My wife's an artist, you know, and she specializes in lots of found objects, and particularly bones. She found a whole bear. She has the bear skull.
Yeah, it looks like a person.
Yeah.
It's
And
disturbing.
the penis bone next
Yeah,
to
the
it.
penis bone sitting there.
So
So,
I'm trying to remember the Batula, I believe it's called Batula.
yeah, I'm sure the Romans probably used them for something. It sounds like some sort of strange sauna device. So, this is our introduction. We've just met. We're gonna do.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Douglas. We're gonna do more and talk about jackets.
Yeah,
in the next video.
I'm wearing an Excelsior.
Yeah, he has ordered some really special units from me, and I feel like Douglas has the articulate way to describe his experience and what he likes, what he doesn't like. So we'll do that.
Who knows?